Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm really glad that you could join me today. And if you're listening to this show on Podomatic, you can also find it on iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio and several other platforms. So you can go to WomenEntrepreneursSecrets.com and click on podcasts in the menu, and you will see the different platforms the show is on, so you can listen on your favorite platform. And also, particularly if you're listening on iTunes, it'd be really great if you could share your feedback, review the show, hopefully 5 stars that you would give it, because that helps the show to be found by more listeners. So I hope that you will share that if you haven't already. And also you can come to WomenEntrepreneursSecrets.com and you could send feedback there as well. Or if you're interested in being a guest, you can find forms there that you can download just to give you the show guidelines and information as well. So that's another thing you can do, or send a message if you want to query about being on the show or being on the blog. And if you want to know more about me, you can go to my website, dbaileycoach.com. You can find out more about my book coaching services and online courses that I put together, so that's a good place for you to check out. And also, if you go to brightstreetbooks.com, you can find out about my fiction writing. And I've got some books out there, so you can read more about them and check out the links and see where they're for sale and see if you like any of them and hope that you do. So we're going to get started today with my guest. And Liz Galloway has spent the last 20 years in wellness tourism, living in 4 different countries, and has reinvented herself by following her passion, seeking the unknown and saying yes. She has worked with luxury brands, big media getaways, international tourism boards, along with coaching on expedition boats, private retreats, and promoting fit travel. And she's also worked with CEOs, startups, and solopreneurs, from the uber-serious corporate world to barefoot running desert dwellers. And she can crack the shell of clients to get to the heart of their creative company needs or wellness goals. And Liz has been featured as a speaker at several trade shows, business events, and has been the host of local morning TV shows, and is sought as an author for several travel, wellness, outdoor, and women's magazines for her writing and visual thinking. So welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you. I'm super excited to chat today.
Well, I really enjoyed the post that you shared on the blog, and I will be sure to link to that in the show notes as well, so other people can check on that. But I'm also, of course, very interested in our topic about reinventing business and adventure, what the new 40 looks like, and we won't be told to live our labels, which I really, really like. So I can't wait to dive into this. But I want to start out by just kind of having you share, if you will, how you got started in what you're doing.
Sure. So what I ended up doing was kind of combining all of my loves of travel and wellness and fitness and my background, which was in international travel, living overseas in Costa Rica and Spain and other places, working with large brands, and seeing what they were doing and, kind of honing in those skills from retreats that I would do for them, or big media events or getaways and things like that. But I always felt like there was a little bit of something missing more on the deeper connection, rather than a lot of the superficialities and just making sure that people felt luxurious and pampered. I really wanted people to be able to tap into their personal transformation that they could take back into their lives, so they could change themselves, they could reinvent themselves, which is something I'm super passionate about, or take it into their professional lives and do, things like that. So 20 years ago, I started out in, working in spas, and that was kind of my intro to that wellness. I went on to, get certified in fitness and yoga and, have my degree in business and so on. So all these different things and opportunities that I pursued kind of brought me to running the Wild Adventure Wellness Retreat site. And that's a place where, we bring people together that combine adventure to push their boundaries, and also therapies to kind of access their minds, and, kind of just taking them on wellness to introduce them to that so that they can use it every day in their lives. So that's kind of like a quick overview, but, you already shared a lot of that at the beginning too.
But I think that we've always, I guess these days probably even more so, where you have a lot of people talking about they want to be, I guess, global nomads, and then a lot of people want to introduce wellness and health as part of their business, and they want to travel, and they don't want to feel like they're stuck, particularly behind a desk. So I think to hear from someone who's doing all those things, I guess put all those things together, is really pretty fascinating, because you don't really always hear that. I think, you hear the idea of it. And I've seen, many people kind of saying, well, this is what I do when I'm working on the beach and all this, but you don't really hear someone say, well, this is my wellness thing, and this is something that I'm really invested in people being better, feeling better, and also, as you were saying, not fitting into these labels and feeling like, well, I can't do this now because it's too late. And that's a big thing for you, obviously, the reinvention.
Yes. So I'm in my 40s, and I started a lot of different things, including these particular retreats after I turned 40. And I completely changed a lot of different things in my life, left behind a lot of toxic situations and people, and used both travel, even though I'd been doing travel for many, many years. This time it was different, right? And so I used travel and kind of pushing those boundaries for myself, and then also just accessing the body physically so that I can, push, positive brain chemistry and endorphins and, keep myself healthy. That took it to a whole other level. So yeah, that's kind of propelled me into saying, I'm really sick of seeing a lot of things that say, hey, everyone can travel if you just do this. And but it's really not about the how to. And for a lot of people, that's not reality. Right. I want to be able to give options to people to do that. And maybe it is a week-long retreat, or maybe it's supporting them in tools that they can use in their everyday life, or, kind of the virtual coaching things that we do and stuff like that. But I really believe in creating tangible tools, and that there's a bigger conversation happening nationwide, especially for people over 40, that we're just sick of the labels. And we're just not going to take it anymore, frankly. And, we can talk about midlife crisis and things like that. And they happen in many different ways. But I think people have been pushing it to the side for so long that they're actually not appreciating where that change is happening. And a lot of that change is positive. So.
Yeah, that's very important things you're saying about what's really realistic for someone's life. If someone is hearing a lot of these messages out here saying you could travel, you could do this, you can do that, and you're like, well, maybe that isn't what I want to do all the time, but how can I really capture this life that I want that maybe isn't tied to the old ways, let's say, for lack of a better way to describe it. Or old labels, or I have to sit at a desk until retirement. That's not what, I want to live my life in a different way. Maybe I have to find that way.
Yes.
And not necessarily fit into these other boxes or definitions either. Because maybe you don't necessarily just want to be a global nomad, but you want to have your freedom in these other ways. Mm-hmm. And it sounds as though what you're doing is helping people to discover what's the right thing for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that people have more confidence now and more access to tools, and our world's continually shrinking digitally, that, with this new confidence and starting to experiment, which is something that I love people to do, they are stepping into new places and new roles. And that's allowing them to grow, So whether it's, you want to do something like what I do and it's more, travel oriented, or you take a piece of that and you just go out and do some adventures and you push some boundaries, but then you're keeping that also at home, or maybe you're doing it with your partner, maybe you're starting it in a new business. Yeah, I think that there's some very powerful things happening, and that, one of the things is change is inevitable. So embrace it.
Well, that's true. That's very true. And that's another thing I think a lot of times people aren't always comfortable with either. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a thing that we're kind of conditioned to feel that it's bad after a certain point of time. Mm-hmm. Or we just are afraid to jump out of what we've been doing, because as you're saying, people have to kind of discover it and find it and do it what works for them. And I think that's a great message, because again, I just feel like you don't always hear that message. It seems that people don't get that idea that they can make those decisions for themselves.
Yeah. And I think definitely not to, keep saying over 40, because that's not necessarily the point. But I do think that society has driven certain messages that way, and it's made people feel like they can't go out and do certain things. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, there's kind of a new awakening in that. And people are recognizing more that they can go out and have a completely new life after things. I mean, after 40, I started a new business. I learned how to fly a helicopter. I became a survival guide in the jungle of Panama. Just all kinds of things, because I wanted to push different boundaries, and I wanted to be able to learn and teach myself so that I could have additional tools even to help others.
Right. Oh my goodness. So how was that to learn to fly a helicopter?
It was amazing. There's no feeling like that. I mean, the first time I did my first solo flight, just the feeling was so freeing and empowering and scary.
Oh my God.
There's no feeling like that, and we have the abilities to, the plasticity of our brains and, the amazing power of the human body and mind. We can continue to learn through our entire life. Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop at a certain point. I think, after, my child has grown, I have more freedom, things like that. And I think, later in life, people have a little bit more of that. They're a little more financially secure, or their children are grown, so maybe they have a little bit more flexibility, things like that. And it just increases that empowerment to go out and try those new things and push those boundaries. And just become a new person, like that reinvention. And you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. It's right. Not about one thing,
Right. It's not just one time. That's it.
Yep.
You just have your one chance for reinvention. No, that's true. It's not just once. And okay, you really have to share about this jungle guide thing, because that's not something I hear every day.
Yeah, it was just another level of learning that I wanted to access, and it was a challenge. I wanted to kind of, not necessarily prove something to myself, but I enjoy being outdoors. That's part of what, we do with the retreats too, is kind of give people that access to these kind of fun outdoor adventures and boundary pushing. But yeah, it was 2 weeks in the Panamanian jungle, and we had some, expert guides just kind of take us through. We learned everything from how to build a fire out of scratch and finding our own tinder by, chopping down trees, and We lived in hammocks next to a river the entire time and cleaned our own water through pumps and charcoal and, just kind of really checked a lot of stuff out. Like we hiked continually every day to new locations. We were learning how to do practical, survival skills that we could use, but also assess situations, self-awareness, maybe medical and emergency situations where if somebody got sick or went down or got hurt. At one point, it actually was very necessary when we crossed the path of a bushmaster, which is a very deadly, lethal snake, very high up on one of the ridges. And had that snake decided to bite somebody that day in our group, that we would have lost that person. There's no way we could have got them down in time through the very thick brush. We were probably a few dozen miles away from anywhere. So things like that. And it was just an experience that I had never felt so satisfied, just being out there covered in dirt, no shower the entire time, no washing my hair, sleeping in a hammock. I loved it, And, so that's just another level that I can take people out and teach, and actually next year, I plan on having a group that will come together as one of the retreats to get their own kind of mini outdoor survival certification, and then the rest of the time will be kind of wellness, yoga, and pampering. So they'll get a little bit of it. I won't take it as intense as what I like to do.
At first they go through that experience, and then they can get the pampering after.
Exactly.
Wow, that is just incredible. It's just incredible. Wow.
It leaves me with some really good stories. I mean, at cocktail parties. Come on.
Exactly, because it's just not your everyday experience, but that has really been really life-changing at the same time.
Right. I mean, I think if I'm talking to other people about pushing their boundaries, I should at least be doing it myself. Walk the walk and talk the talk and go out and do what you want to do. So I had the opportunity to do it, and I took it,
Wow. Well, it's true, though, and that's another excellent point, that you're actually doing what you're saying. It's not just, well, I'm just saying this because it sounds nice. And as we know, it happens out here where it's not so much that the people have the experience that they're teaching,
right?
But it's more just a thing that they're doing, and it does make a difference. And people, I think, really can tell when someone is sincere about what they're doing and what they've experienced, and it connects with people who want that. They want some honesty and they want integrity, and they really want to feel something.
Absolutely.
Which is the point of reinventing yourself, that you do want to have these different experiences. So, I hope if you heard that thunder, but talking about experience. So for you to create your Wild Adventure Wellness Retreat, at what point did you say, okay, this is how I'm going to bring all this together?
Yeah. So it kind of was a 2.0 version of something I was doing about 5-6 years ago, and it was more focused on just adventure camps, like pop-up base camps and adventure camps. Then it kind of morphed into more of this because I wanted to tap into the wellness element and the therapeutic element. So I actually bring coaches and certified therapists to the retreats with people, and they end up doing one-on-one sessions. So it can get, pretty intense. There's a lot of breakthroughs. A lot of time there's a lot of emotion. So a couple years back, I said, you know what, this is more of the formula that works, and where people are actually breaking barriers for themselves and really feeling that change. And even if it's, 5 or 7 days at a time, the program is very, I don't want to say program like it's very strict because you're not required to do any of it if you choose not to. But it's built with a very active schedule that includes daily wellness, daily coaching, group coaching, outdoor adventure. You've got your nutrition behind it and your relaxation. And it blends an element that lets people, I think, tap into a lot of different things. And then to also give themselves patience and dedication. I mean, I think those are two things we don't often give ourselves. So we have a decision every day to kind of make that change, and then hopefully I can provide them the tools when they do leave, with additional coaching, virtual sessions or whatever, if they choose, so that retreat high, they don't go home and kind of feel like, oh, now what do I do?
Right.
If you've ever been at a trade show or somewhere, maybe you feel like, oh, I've got this great information and all these goals and notes, and I feel this great transformation, and you go home and it doesn't happen, because you feel like you don't have that support system. So I think that's very important.
Well, that's true. It's easy for all that to kind of go away after you're out of that environment, and you're kind of back at the usual thing. It's like, oh, okay, where was that excitement that I had when I was there? So it's really good to have things in place to continue that. But do you feel, I guess, with the people that you work with, in terms of, particularly about women who are at a certain point and they're like, I want to do these other things now in this part of my life, do you ever sense any resistance from people who are just, it's hard for them to believe that they can do these things, they can make these changes?
Yeah, a lot, mostly, yeah. That's mostly what ends up happening. It's surprising how little we actually believe in ourselves and our power, especially, say, later in life or midlife, because, if you've been doing a certain thing for so long, or you've had a certain routine, or, maybe something happens to completely set your life and things change. Those are pretty shocking things if you're not, used to them or ready for them. So it's really surprising that people don't have the belief in themselves that is in there. So it's really just tapping into that. Yeah, I absolutely. We run into people who say, this is just too scary for me, and it could be a physical activity they don't want to do, or it could be just talking in a group and being comfortable with having their voice or sharing something that's very scary or intimate, or, maybe the first time they've said anything, or maybe, it's a dream they have. So yeah, there absolutely is that resistance, because people are taught that they're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to rock the boat. And I want people rocking that boat, and I absolutely want them doing that, later stages in their life. Even though the retreats aren't necessarily just made for a particular age range, I've taken people anywhere from their 20s to, people that have been in their 70s. So it's really all over. But yeah, there is definitely resistance to that. And it really just comes from your own blocks.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I think that in a way, I guess our society hasn't caught up with the fact that people do live longer. And it's not like, well, retirement, maybe that was 50 or 60. I mean, depending on what a person was doing in their life and how they were living, or how, whatever may occurred. But now if someone is living longer, they're not necessarily trying to retire and sit in a rocking chair for 20, 30 years. Or just check out life. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think, and like I was saying earlier, I think the conversation is shifting where people are saying, we're not going to accept these labels, and I'm going to define myself in new ways, and there's a big increase too in people going out and being very active, getting into, extreme sports, or all in their midlife, or kind of pushing boundaries and, running marathons and ultra marathons and doing all kinds of goal breaking things that, maybe they locked away a long time ago. And that's kind of what usually ends up happening with people, with all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've certainly done that to myself, and just me actually pushing my physical and emotional and mental boundaries has helped me push past that. And I'm learning every day and continue to do that. And that's, I mean, I think as a lifelong learner, that's something that I embrace a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important for people to be able to embrace change as they go on, is to be willing to learn. And just thinking back and when I was in corporate and when I was in IT, and a lot of times if people were in the company, particularly I worked at AT&T, and they may have started there like 18 or something, and then maybe they're still there 20 years later, and what they know is what they know, and there was a certain I guess people being kind of put up on pedestals. If you are here in a certain amount of time and you know some certain things, maybe about your work or the department or whatever, but then there's a tendency not to want to learn something new, because particularly in that environment, I guess maybe corporate in general, the idea that, well, I don't want to show that I don't know something, because that could mess up my career maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and if you say you show any weakness,
right,
that we've been taught that that's wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah. So thank goodness for people like Brene Brown, who are now out there talking about this vulnerability is the new strength and this type of thing, and it's so important.
Right. Yeah, I think it is, because I think the conditioning that people get, and that's kind of, I guess what I was trying to find the words for, is the conditioning that you get is that, well, you just, you go up this hill and you learn these things, and then you kind of sit on that hill until until you retire or you fall over, I don't know. And that's it. So it really just takes a new way of thinking is what you're doing, a way of living, to say, well, hey, we don't have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you tapped right into it. And that kind of comes with that, I don't want to say like actual brain rewiring, but in many ways it is, because when you're changing thought patterns and habits and like physical exercise or whatever that may be, and combining those, you are changing chemistries and, accessing new synapses in your brain, and, releasing endorphins, and, staying healthier longer because those telomeres are lengthening and increasing, and that's kind of healthy aging both for the body and the brain. And so, like, not getting all scientific, I'm not a scientist, but there is a lot of power in our actual makeup of our bodies. And so, and it does help us get out of, situations where it's stress or overload, maybe depression or anxiety, and those things, like, like you're saying, like, you just come to a certain point and then you're just supposed to stop there and accept that. I don't believe in that.
Definitely, I can tell.
Hey, do you want to come to the jungle with me?
Oh, that's okay. I don't mind hearing about the adventure, but I think that's as much of that is I'm going to be trying to get to, but it's just what you're saying. It's part of the change and exposing yourself to new things and not accepting what people say you're supposed to be and you're supposed to do at a certain point in your life. Right. Yeah.
Right. Redefining 40, right? Or 20 or 30 or whatever age you are. This is not, I'm not being ageist, but yeah, it's definitely redefining, and it's time to do that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And also what you're touching on, the brain rewiring, and also dealing with things like stress and depression, like how many people really fall into that, and then they've got to go, often get medication, or maybe they just kind of try to live through it if they can't get the medication, or if they don't want to make that choice. And then that changes their whole experience in life. You know, they're always battling stress or depression or whatever's going on in their life now. It's kind of taking away the quality of their life.
Yeah. And because we have the choice to kind of, more choices now anyway, to kind of create the quality of our life, and those conversations are really important. I mean, I think allowing yourself to fail, allowing yourself to be disappointed, and being okay with that is a big deal. Being more compassionate with yourself. I know a lot of people talk about this, but it's actually a thing, you know. I think that, like we've touched on, we've just been taught for so long a certain way of accepting it that I think that's just a breaking point.
But your blog post touched on traveling and business and different things that you do to stay organized. And, you know, for someone who's listening and does want to do some travel or possibly even do something in a business sense, how hard is it for you to really keep track of everything, keep everything going when you're on the road and you're going to all these different places?
Yeah, it is a lot of work. So I think I mentioned in the blog post that I need to be prepared for very long days. Sometimes it's, 4:30 in the morning until, late at night. And so focusing on staying healthy in between that too, because I'm basically working in health, is highly important, but I use a lot of, I use a lot of softwares. I'm a big list maker. So I do track a lot of things to keep myself on schedule as far as like using teamwork software, but it's mostly just kind of accessing what needs to be done, deadlines, who I've been in contact with, where's the next steps going? Do I have a deadline on an article coming up? What are the touch points that need to be hit before the next retreat comes up? And that I'm talking about maybe just the marketing part of that, those touch points getting out there. But retreats themselves are heavily logistic driven. So there's a lot of detail. And I think it's very important to have, plan A, B, and C so that, when people are arriving at a place like that they don't have to worry about one single detail. And, kind of asking yourself what questions they may be thinking or asking is a big part of that, so being able to really know your audience, and kind of, access those questions before they themselves even ask it. But yeah, I mean, I do use a lot of different softwares. I track a lot of analytics. I look at what's working, what's not, and I'm very quick to change that if it isn't working, try something new. I also think it's really important to just reach out to people. Like if you have an idea or, something pops up or you like something that somebody's doing, and you feel kind of an affinity for that, reach out to them. Maybe it's just, hey, I like what you're doing, or, maybe it's, hey, there's a collaboration idea I have. Will this work? Are you interested? I mean, all kinds of creative things come out of that. And I've met a lot of really cool people I've collaborated with, and, partnerships and coaches that I bring to the retreats that, add more benefit and things like that. And all of that is usually done online in our digital world, especially if I'm out, on an expedition somewhere or, at a retreat. Yeah, I have to be prepared and ready to work anywhere. And that's usually on a little laptop and a phone. So, but it definitely can be done. And I think if people, first of all, lay out their goals and then prioritize that and kind of decide what they want that to look like, obviously that's the starting point. It sounds simplistic, but, you first lay out that plan and then you have to be ready to act on it. The rest of it's just basically tenacity and just keep going. That's the way business is. It's a constant thing. It's
right. Definitely a lot to keep track of, and even though we are very fortunate to have the software and things even on the phone that people can use these days, it's good to hear what are the different ways to keep your business going, keep yourself going.
Yes.
As well as you're traveling. So when you're doing all this work and you're really charged up, what is your self-care? Like how do you look after yourself to make sure that you're okay as you're on the go?
I try to get my sleep, so that's a big thing. And obviously that's part of when our body repairs itself.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I like weightlifting and high intensity training and then yoga. So those are the two main things I do. And I schedule them in for myself and keep them as appointments just like I would any other appointment or time or, thing that I'm dealing with. And I just don't let that fall to the wayside. So I try to be strict with myself, but also be aware of what my body's telling me and, be tolerant of myself, what I need.
Well, that's good because a lot of times, I'm sure as you know, entrepreneurs don't always take care of themselves the way they should.
Most of the time, yeah.
They don't always do that. So it's really, good to emphasize, particularly to the listeners, that yes, you can do these things and you can still take care of yourself at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
And scheduling it, I think, is a great idea because that's something that usually it's going to fall by the wayside if you've got a lot going on. And scheduling is really a good way to keep track of everything and make sure that you do it. So, Liz, could you please share with everyone where they can find out more about you?
Sure. They can always connect with me on Instagram at travel2wellness, travel.2wellness, or on the website, Wild Adventure Wellness Retreats, and just go to WildAdventures.Life. I'm happy to get emails from people at info@WildAdventures.Life. I love hearing people's stories and connecting with people. So, yeah, feel free to reach out.
Great. You work with other companies. Do you also do like corporate things or business things if people want to go on a retreat? Like you do all of that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have people who say they want to replicate like a retreat that we offer. Like we just did one in Bali that was adventure and wellness based, which they mostly all are. Mm-hmm. And so if someone wants to replicate that, they certainly can bring their group along and get those same benefits of that. Yeah.
Because you would think that would probably really be a good thing for companies to start to look at seriously, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like to use them as incentives, kind of as, something to give back to the people who are, performing and things like that. So, and like I said, I like to play around with ideas. Like next year we'll have one that will focus on that outdoor survival where they actually can walk away with a certificate. And we have one on a private adventure island in Belize that will be very focused on the outdoors and getting people moving with that wellness. So, they're never the same, but they kind of access the same points for people to get the benefits.
Mm-hmm. So when you're picking these locations and things, do you have to do, well, I guess, assume you would have to do a lot of research, but are there certain things that you look for when you're providing these experiences?
Yeah, I usually look for how easy it is to work with the people. Honestly, if you're reaching out to a resort or a location and it's a struggle to, have that communication, that's probably a red flag that I don't want to work with because they are so intensely logistic driven. And you have to take care of the details. So that's one thing. Obviously, a location that's beautiful, that people would want to experience, that has a cultural aspect to it. I think that's very important. Where they can feel, again, it's taking them out of their comfort zone. So it's all driven around that. So places that have that. And then also a place where obviously I can have the ability to teach fitness and yoga. And then a place that's going to allow us to get outdoors. And that could be anything from hiking a volcano to jumping out of a plane, snorkeling with whale sharks, kayaking, in marine parks, different things like that. But there needs to be access to real outdoor stuff in nature.
Mm-hmm. And that all sounds fantastic. And it doesn't involve that you have to be around gigantic snakes.
No, that's just me. Those are my personal trips. That's what I do on my downtime. That's my relaxation time.
That's relaxation. Oh my gosh. Well, if you can do that to relax, then you definitely can. You can do anything, that's for sure. So, Liz, this has been a really fun conversation. Before we close, do you have any final thoughts?
I think just if you have a desire for that change or that reinvention, and you've got something that's been just nagging at you or something you locked away a long time ago, start accessing it, start tapping into it, and start experimenting. I think the more of us who are doing that can continue to open up that conversation and change those labels that are out there.
So I was really, really happy to have you on the show, Liz. This has been a really wonderful conversation.
Thank you. It's been so much fun.
So everyone, as I always say, I know you enjoyed it, so please make sure that you check out Liz's website and see if perhaps there's something that you can participate in or share with some other business people, business owners who may be able to do something like this or work with her. And, I think that it's especially good if you're a business owner or someone who's looking to make some changes in your life, that you realize that you can keep doing that. That's really the important message here. So once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you again next time. Bye. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website, WomenEntrepreneurSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.